It's time.
For the demo.
I hope it's a live demo, so I'm a little bit nervous.
Things that can go wrong will go wrong.
Exactly. Tal is here to support you. Everything will go wrong, Matvey, so don't worry.
Okay, so here is our open source repo. Don't look at it, start it when you see this page. So here I can find quickstart, launch this command, and actually I will launch like the same thing what we have here, but I will include MySQL database, like Docker Compose with MySQL database, because I need a database for our use case. So I'm starting keep. It's the same keep as from quickstart, but it has this keep database one. I'm going to localhost 3000, and that's the keep UI. Welcome. And of course, I didn't delete my previous container from past experiments, so it's not a clean experiment. So I will just drop this thing off and delete my volumes.
Got it. Orbstack. I can see another Orbstack user. How's it working for you, by the way? I keep hearing about Orbstack.
It feels faster.
He's trying to convince me to ditch Docker, but it's not working for me.
I see.
For now.
Okay, interesting.
So I restarted. Oh yeah, it's running migrations now, so it's a fresh database. So just quick overview of open source keep. Everything except this tab is available. So this is part of enterprise. So we have deduplication, correlation of alerts to incidents, workflows. We will talk about workflows today. Service topology, mapping extraction, maintenance windows. Something we like to call Swiss knife for alerts. And let's shoot a few alerts. In order to do this, I will use API and just curl. So here's my alert, and if I send the same one, you see it's deduplicated because the fingerprint is the same, and my default deduplication rule worked. So what I want to do, I want to build a workflow which will go to my database, and for each alert I received, it will go to database. It will check if the evaluation will not be true. It will send webhook to some third-party system.
Personal experience for me. For some people, they might say, that sounds easy. You can just do that with wherever you configure your alerts. You can just make the alert a bit more complex. Go fetch something from some database and only then shoot the alert. The fact is that the DNA for most monitoring tools, I'm not saying all the monitoring tools, but for most of them, is that they work very well with the data they have inside. So everything they digest will work perfectly with whatever features they have within their platform. But whenever it's something external, it's going to be a problem. So, for example, if there's some trigger to something that happened and you want to go, that's like a simple and famous use case for Keep. If there is some trigger, for example, alert, but based on this alert, it doesn't mean you want to wake up somebody in the middle of the night because this alert happened. It's just a trigger to something else you want to do. You can use, and this is what Matvey is going to demonstrate here. You want to go and get some more data and then decide if you need to take some action or not.
So just from my understanding, an alert is more like an event to which you react and you run some sort of a workflow. So if we think of alerts as events, I think that allows us to mentally understand this better, in that it is reacting to events of type alert. We need to do something before we decide what to do next. So that just basically it's like triggers for workflows is what alerts are.
Exactly.
Got it.
there could be other triggers. For example, major part of the system is dedicated to actually grouping alerts to incidents and raising incidents. So incidents themselves, they could be triggers for workflows. And I guess there are some more more triggers in the system.
I see. So it's not just alerts; it's also other types of events, right? Like for example, as you mentioned, like an incident,
Right?
Which is another type of event, but it's still like triggers. So the core concept in Keep is the workflow.
Yep. Workflow is like a glue. So you never bring Keep to your infrastructure where no other systems exist. You always bring Keep to some systems you need to export reports to. Maybe your company is HIPAA compliant and you need to log all events in some specific system or wire them to ServiceNow. What I observed before is when you bring Keep to your infrastructure, you need to kind of build a few custom workflows to maybe glue it together with other systems around.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So continuing with the demo, here at Keep we have two ways of creating workflows. First way is visual, actually using our visual editor. It's still in beta, but I prefer to use YAMLs because keeping workflows in YAML in some GitHub repo as a configuration as code is much more comfortable. It allows you to keep track of changes, and when the scale of workflows you run, usually our users, they have like dozens of workflows here, it's just easier to track. So as a first step, I go to our GitHub repo and go to examples, workflow examples. And for me personally, I'm not actually a documentation reader. I just want to jump into some example and guess and craft something similar. So what I want to find is maybe some SQL example. In this workflow, I see that it's an example how to make SQL query and use the results of this SQL query as a condition for the next step. That's exactly what I want. What else I want? I want example with a trigger by alert. Click around. This is how I usually find. But actually, I know that triggers type manual will trigger my workflow. And the last one I want to have is some example of triggering, sending a request to some other service using HTTP. Yeah, I will use this one as example to trigger my IRM, imaginary IRM, but actually I will use webhook.site for this to see if my request got received. I will go to IDE where I have something I prepped before. I downloaded our SQL query example, and before crafting this, I will create the database actually. So
this thing that you're creating now, the database that you're creating now, and the data that you're going to insert into this table, this is so that Keep will query it, right? This is part of the workflow. That's why this is necessary.
Right, exactly. So it could be, it's just an example of some applications database with I want to check before sending an alert.
I can maybe share like some use case that one of our customers have, and I think it's something many people can relate with. But just think about this simple use case where you have some alert that triggers when something bad happens. But let's say it might happen for some paying customer and for some customer that is not paying. And based on whether this customer is paying or not, you define your SLA. So how fast do you solve the problem for them? Now, one of the things that you don't have in these alerts is whether this customer is paying or not, because it might be some sensitive data that sits somewhere else in some database, maybe in your billing provider or anything like that. And then what you want to do is you still want to get those alerts. But when they happen, you want to go to your database and check whether this customer is a paying customer or not. If it's a paying customer, then maybe you will only attend. If it's a paying customer, you will attend to this problem right away. But if it's not a paying customer, maybe only starting 9 a.m., you want to get those alerts. So that's one of the things you can achieve by querying some third-party provider to get this extra context for the alerts that you're having.
It's actually a pretty common example, pretty popular example to define SLA. Okay, so I inserted to our like small dummy table one line, one record, and let's imagine this record represents last time some background task was executed. And that's what I'm going to check when I will receive an alert. If background task didn't work for the last 24 hours, let's push this alert forward. I'm going back to my YAML I'm crafting. So here's my example. Oh, here I'm using a provider, and provider in Keep is an entity. It's actually any third-party system Keep is able to integrate with. So it could be a source of alerts, source of topology, or in our case, it's something you could trigger from webhook, from workflows. So I need to go back, and I need to create a MySQL provider. And what's my database name? That's the database I just created. DemoDB. Let's see if it will work. Yeah, it worked. So it checked the status. Yeah. And if you see a message here, it means that something bad with credentials. So now I see ID is MySQL, and I can go here and just use it as MySQL here. I need to find max daytime from demo table, but not daytime, it's event time. And it should actually query my database. Let's create a trigger. It's manual.
By the way, a fun fact is, I don't know if people noticed that, but I mentioned before the Hacker News post we had about GitHub Actions for monitoring tools. So it's not only that we just use that as an appealing title, it's actually something we get inspiration from. So for some people who might be familiar with GitHub Actions, the syntax here is pretty much the same. So we try to take inspiration or copy some of the way that GitHub does automation for CI/CD. Just apply it for monitoring. So you can actually use anything that you get from your alerts within the workflows. It's very dynamic. And the cool thing is that, like what Matvey just said, he likes to keep his workflows in YAMLs. It's easier for him to keep track of things. And in general, I think the engineering world is going to a place where keeping everything as code is something a lot of people rely with. And that's something else you can achieve with that. You can just have a repository with all your workflows in. You can have a GitHub action that automatically syncs those workflows to Keep, which is also a cool thing. It's like connecting all the different dots.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I've did notice steps like in that YAML, and that makes me think definitely of GitHub Actions. Provide is obviously something new that we don't have in GitHub Actions. Also, actions, what is the correlation between steps and actions?
Basically, more of the same. It's our way of separating two different things that we know how to do. One is querying some third-party tool, and the other thing is pushing data to these third-party tool. So steps is like a way for us to get more context, and then actions is a way for us to push this context to somewhere else. Just a semantic difference. Behind the scenes, it's pretty much the same thing. And also regarding providers, what I can say, it has some acronym with GitHub Actions, because it's with GitHub Actions you have the actions, like the actual repository of reproducible actions that you can use. So checkout, for example, to check out some GitHub code, or I don't know, to comment on some pull request, and providers is our way of just making your life easier with, okay, it's MySQL, and MySQL can run some queries, so just use MySQL with some parameters that you can give to it, and it will work out of the box.
Okay, continuing. Thank you, Ted.
Sorry.
You're kidding. Next thing, what I want to do, here in my example, last step, if condition will actually be true, it will publish to Slack. But I don't want to publish to Slack. I want to publish to my imaginary IRM system. So I use HTTP example from GitHub. And here, one interesting thing, it actually is something Tal mentioned. Here I could use some fields from alert or even from the query I made to the database. And here I will check my alert. I'll go to alert and go to its payload. And for example, I want to add use environment here. So, oops. I will republish environment to my third-party system. And of course, I need to change the URL. I really like this website. It allows you to check webhooks.
So it receives webhooks and then it displays them in an easy to understand way. That's what webhook.site is. Okay, interesting. I haven't used it before, so
it's really, really nice for debugging.
Okay.
It's like the temporary emails website. You can get a temporary webhook URL and you can just send everything there and see it.
Yeah.
And I think let's try to push it to Keep and see if it works. So I am going to workflows and I will upload it here. Now I see it's uploaded, and I will publish new alert, but I don't want my alert to be grouped to the previous alert, so I want it to have a new fingerprint.
What is an alert fingerprint in this case?
It's a unique ID my alerts are getting grouped by. And most of monitoring systems, they, for example, send firing alert and so-called resolving alert. And we don't want to have like two entities for two signals about the same alert. So we could group them by or dedup. That's how we call it.
Okay.
I'm sending it and going back to workflows. And I can't actually believe it worked from the first try. Let me see.
It's as if you've done this before. It's not the first time. that you're doing this. Good.
That's not the first time, but usually it doesn't work from the first time. So
yeah, it's the first time that it worked. The first time. Amazing.
Exactly. So it didn't publish anything, and I will go back to MySQL, and I will create a new record there, which will actually be recent. And now if I actually, we will see if it works. Maybe I was too early celebrating it. One more alert.
I didn't pay attention when you changed the fingerprint.
Yeah, I just changed something in the fingerprint, and of course it didn't work. Now the fun part begins. Probably I didn't do a good job with my condition. So I see it got the max daytime from the database. So let's go to database again. Let's check. So it should get latest timestamp. It's today 11:13. Today 11:13. So it managed to get it. Now, if my value is more than 24 hours, I should run. So it should be less than 24 hours.
Yep.
It should run. Let's imagine,
yes.
Okay, reverse use case. Let's imagine we want to send this alert if the job executed recently, and we received an alert. So I'm saving it, and I'm going back to my workflows. I want to upload the workflow. It will just overwrite my workflow. I will actually just send this new alert from the other window. Alert received. And I'm going back to workflows. Something bad happened. Oh, it's good. It tried to send HTTP request, and it didn't manage to get the environment from the alert. So we moved forward.
Okay.
Now I guess I need help. Tal's help. Do you know why it may be a case?
I think if you check out the payload of the alert you sent, it might not have environment within it. That's one option. Oh, actually, I can see it has. Maybe let me have a quick look. Oh, I think you need to wrap alert dot environment in like the double curly like
double.
Yeah, but not the whole sentence. Like keep dot strip should just be without the. So we use mustache here, Python mustache, which basically allows us to use those curly braces to extract data. So yeah, I think what you just did should do the trick.
Invalid template. Oh, maybe I forgot the closing bracket. Of course, this is a real demo. So and I'm sending one more. Moment of truth.
Okay. It's spinning.
Wow, 200. And we received our alert with environment. Thank you, Tal, for the help.
Okay.
It worked.
Nice.
And that's it. Let's sum it up. So what did we do? We received an alert from the monitoring system. We built a workflow, which is automatically going to the MySQL database, making a query. And based on the results of this query, it's republishing this alert to a third-party system. That's actually it.
Okay. So does this need an alert to be triggered for the workflow to start? So I know that we mentioned that workflows can be triggered by different types of events. We mentioned an incident can trigger a workflow. We've seen an alert triggering a workflow. Is there something else that can trigger workflows?
There is one more option to trigger them manually. But if I trigger them manually, I will not have alert content here. So I intentionally, when I was debugging, I wanted to have alert, to debug it using alert. Probably something for us to improve in the UI. You can run it manually for the alert. Right.
Yeah, it's already implemented. Yeah. One of the things we had in mind here is that another pain point with alerts is that you always find it hard to debug them, to understand whether it really works or not. Like just what Matvey just did. So sending the alert over and over again and see if the threshold is right. Maybe you need to adjust it. Maybe you need to change something. Maybe there's some typo in in the query you just did. And this was one of the things we wanted to implement within Keep, is to allow somebody to test this workflow very easily. So instead of having to send the triggering event over and over again, you can just very simply either manually execute the workflow and feed it with everything that it expects. So for example, environment in this case, you could just fill it in manually and test if the workflow runs properly, or you can actually take a past alert and make it trigger the workflow again and fill in all the information. One more thing that I think is interesting is that besides events, you can also have interval, which is basically also a very common use case that we see from our users. Just run this workflow every 30 seconds to check if the event happened or not, and then decide to do something or not.
Do you have any sort of reporting capability in terms of showing like how many alerts were triggered, workflows? And I'm also wondering, because off of this, we've seen like workflows fail. So would you trigger an alert when the workflow fails?
I think it's a cool feature idea.
If you enjoyed this video, while a like and subscribe are always appreciated, you can now watch the full movie as a MakeItWork.tv member. Join to get your Jellyfin account details on the account page. You can stream the full conversation in 4K to all your devices, and you can also download it for offline viewing. No ads and no tracking. The content is the product. And if you prefer it free, you can listen to our chat before and after this demo at makeitwork.fm. See you in the next one.